All right, let's talk carbohydrates. In most popular diets, high energy carbohydrates are the first thing to go. All right, so such things like breads, pastas, rice, potato, cutting carbs out of your diet is unnecessary. Let's get that very clear. Because let's be honest, life would not be worth living if we couldn't eat carbs every time, all the time. The key is knowing the difference between high energy and low energy, or in old language, simple and complex carbohydrates. Then once you understand that, it's understanding how to eat them strategically and get the advantage out of them, all right? Because they do speed up recovery, they do help support stress response, but we do need to understand how to use them. A bit like anything, it's all well and good, but it's got to be in balance. So high energy, these are things that are made from processed grains, sugar, bread, pasta, that kind of thing, all right? Things that are grown and packaged up. These foods are converted into glucose in the bloodstream, which causes an insulin spike in our pancreas. Insulin is our body's blood sugar regulator. Too high is dangerous, too low is also dangerous. The job of the pancreas is to distribute glucose evenly for energy storage. If someone is eating too many high energy carbohydrates, there's an excess consistently, and that energy will be stored as fat. Unfortunately, because your body can only burn so much insulin in one day. All right, so if we have high insulin, we'll create an high insulin response, and then that makes it really, really hard to tap into stored energy. Unfortunately, the more fat you have, the more it will store. So learning where they are best used is depending on your circumstances and that is important, and we will walk through this with you because the use of high energy carbohydrates is varied depending on whether you are female, male, and also depending on if you are a male possibly who's overweight or who is getting to that sort of 50-year-old age where metabolically you've started to slow down, hormonally you've started to slow down. And usually life might have slowed down too, like you're not moving as much as you used to. And the same if you're a woman approaching perimenopause due to hormonal withdrawal, insulin response changes. All right, so this is where we need carbohydrates are really, really important for those for menopausal women to support stress response. But we need to have the exercise coming in to back it up, and we definitely need to be hitting the protein goal to balance out the insulin response. So this is where we get to timing carbohydrates. So when we're talking about timing, I'm referring specifically to high energy carbohydrates at this point in time. So eating high energy carbohydrates after an intense workout like strength training or interval training or a long distance run is so important because you have depleted glycogen stores from your muscles during the workout, and your body will prioritize glucose to replenish the muscle stores over fat cells. So consuming high energy carbohydrates at the time where you will get the most out of them is part of learning how to fuel your body to support your body's requirements. As an easy rule for consuming the correct amount and consuming them at the correct time, about a cup size. So if it was rice or pasta, you want about a cup to palm size, all right? So it would be about that big, all right? Which is probably about the same size as like half to 3/4 of a measuring cup. And we want to time them straight after the workout. And then if you are menopausal, then we will also time them a bit differently. But let's just take the menopausal bracket off the table for a second. If you're consuming high energy carbohydrates, we want them straight after the workout in that 45-minute window. And then we want to consume them again within about 3 to 4 hours after the workout. From there, then we can push them out of the equation. All right. And we'll stick to low energy carbohydrates. But if you're menopausal, we find that you need more carbohydrate to support what's going on. So this was where we might encourage you to have carbohydrates with breakfast, and it might be like a rolled oat or some sourdough, or we might encourage it to have them with a mid-morning snack. to support your cortisol levels and your stress response that's happening hormonally across the day, whereas everyone else in any other population, so under 40, someone who's not menopausal, and men who are a fair bit younger, timing them is very beneficial. Once again, that whole timing aspect can be a little bit tricky to navigate and understand, so we will be going through this with you in your coaching sessions. Then we move to low energy carbohydrates. These guys are best consumed with every meal. Most low energy carbohydrate sources are unrefined fruits, vegetables, legumes like beans and chickpeas, etc. These guys are the most underrated health and metabolism boosters you can get, and you can't overeat them. They are so low in calories. For the volume of them, you'll never get fat eating vegetables. Never. All right, so we want to balance out all of our meals with low energy carbohydrates. So if you have a look at the example below, it sort of illustrates the point of the amount of calories per vegetable, right? 1 cup of pasta, so 1 measuring cup, is 230 calories. 5 cups of strawberries equals 230 calories. So calorie density inside these, let alone nutrient density, is completely different. Nutrient density inside a piece of fruit or a vegetable is so much higher than what the pasta delivers. So we want to be able to start balancing it out, with most of the plate is made up of these colorful fruits and vegetables and less of these guys. So the goal is to eat as many colorful and crunchable vegetables daily as you can. This improves health, sustained energy, recovery, and fat loss. And because fruits and vegetables have high fiber content, your metabolism works harder to convert the nutrition into energy. So if you eat a cruciferous vegetable like broccoli, your body's got to work really hard to metabolize that. So your body burns more calories whilst it's metabolizing that food. This is how we start to burn more calories at rest. So eating vegetables frequently of each meal is like throwing petrol on top of a campfire. All right. So it's like campfires, tickling away. We chuck vegetables on it. It's like chucking fuel on the fire. It goes, fires up. So they're really, really important. There's such an underrated food source, vegetables. If you don't like them, start hiding them in your meat or hiding them in something to get more of them in. As the weeks progress with consistent nutrition timing, like eating the big 3 in every meal, you will become hungrier, which is a great thing. This means your metabolism is starting to fire. So aim to slowly increase your portion of low energy carbohydrates, so vegetables and fruits, with each meal as time goes on. So you might only be able to eat a meal this size in the beginning, but over time you should be able to start expanding that out with the vegetables. So the protein will stay about the same. The carbohydrates, depending on what your relationship with them is now, might slow down a little bit. So they might be smaller in portion size, but that means we add more vegetables. So if we take a carbohydrate portion size that used to be this big, like say this much rice, and we shrink it down to this much, we add more vegetables to increase the size of the meal. So we don't want to eat less calories that way. We just want to restructure how the calories are proportioned out. And here's our carbs chart. Like I said, it can be a little bit overwhelming or confusing when you're not used to seeing it this way or seeing the language laid out this way. But high energy carbohydrates essentially are things with grains in them, right? So breads, pastas, and we want to use gluten-free options. In my opinion, they're better, or at least whole grain options. They're the most nutritious, and they're least damaging to your gut because they have the least amount of ingredients in them. Although gluten-free can be tricky. But if we're talking bread, I really recommend using sourdough. It's got like 4 or 5 ingredients in it max. It's a very, very clean source of bread, and it's very yummy. And when we talk about grains, we want to stick to things like whole grain rice. Quinoa is a very, very good one. And we want to stick to things like oats as your main source, your most common source of carbohydrate when we're constructing meals. Then we move over to the low energy category. Everything that goes in this list is really, really important. So when we have talk about fruits, we've everything happening here. All right. Any fruit, we go for it. All right. There's nothing off the table here. Then when we talk about vegetables, everything that grows under the sun, we want that. All right. Then when we go through beans, all types of beans are also a lower energy carbohydrate, but they're also high in protein. So they're super good sources for getting both brackets in. So high protein sources of low energy carbohydrates are beans and legumes. So really, really important.